Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of The Raven. I'm Jason Lavelle, your host and your guide on this literary journey. I'm delighted to welcome you back to the show for this season, and I've got a great episode here with the amazing and very prolific author of young adult thrillers, Kristina Rienzi. Kristina, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's great to see you again. It's wonderful, and I just saw you on Spilling Ink not too long ago, so it's wonderful to have you back.
Yeah, that was a fun show too. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to be hearing a reading from your book, Among Us. But before we do, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what we're diving into here?
Sure. This is a new adult thriller that takes place on the Jersey Shore, which is where I live and where I'm from. And it's about a Jersey Shore blogger, an English professor turned blogger at night, who gets herself mixed up in a government conspiracy. And it turns out to be just a deadly game of cat and mouse, which is makes it kind of fun.
I like it. I like it. And the way you're describing it, the way you're smiling there, I'm like, oh, she totally wants this to happen to her.
Right. I'm like, yeah, in a way, and in a way, no, it's a little scary. But yeah, it's like you just want to jump into and dive into the adventure.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear a little bit of this story here. Go ahead with your reading whenever you're ready.
Okay. And I am going to apologize because I'm not as good as the audible narrator, Lewis Arlt, who did a fantastic job. He's
Oh
like an
my
Emmy
gosh.
Award winning actor. Not
So
me.
good.
I'm just me. He was amazing. I was
Yes.
so blessed to have him. And that's another story for us to talk about. But
Mhm.
I will read the first chapter because I feel like that'll just kind of get you guys into the story and where it's headed, and it'll introduce an important character who is carried throughout the story, Lou Rollins.
All right. Well, the
So,
show is yours. Take over.
great, thank you. So, chapter 1, 1968. 6'4", with a buzz cut and two stars on his shoulder, Major General Lou Rollins hopped into the mud-covered all-terrain vehicle. Strapped with every weapon and tool a military man on an alien hunt might need, he revved the crappy government engine. The easterly wind lifted pinpricks of rain droplets left behind from last night's rainstorm. They found their home on Lou's face. No waiting for them to evaporate. Passivity was for civilians. He shook the spit-like water off and hocked a loogie to send a message. Never mess with an armed man on a badass far-out mission. Lieutenant General Dowd's leathery face flashed before Lou's mind. He grunted. An invisible scar where Army career suicide had pressed the barrel of an M14 to his temple niggled at him. His credibility was about to bleed out on the side of Highway 35. It was worth every AB plus pint. Lou unrolled the coffee-stained map from the passenger seat. He pulled it taut until the wrinkles disappeared. Sliding the tactical flashlight from his belt, he turned the illumination on. The thin paper appeared translucent against the darkness. He traced his finger along the route from where he was to where he needed to be. His sense of direction was stellar. Lou was a human compass, reading the stars to find his way at night. The map verified his hunch. Due west. He crumpled the sheet and tossed it on the floor. No stinking wood fibers would make a bit of a difference now. It was time to trust his gut and the universe. He pressed the gas and plodded along the uneven land. If evidence of those bastards existed, he would be the one to find it. He didn't give a rat's ass if it was those little gray men. Shit, he would take anything inhuman, with or without a heartbeat, whether they had hearts or not. He meant anything. The green kind, the reptile kind, the insect kind. The kind he hadn't yet imagined. Not because he was crazy, because they existed. Any quantum physicist worth his PhD would agree. Tonight was Lou's one shot to prove to those pompous assholes whose butt cheeks were sewn together that they didn't corner the market on intelligent life in the universe. Not a chance in holy hell. White knuckling the steering handles, Lou slammed his size 12 boot on the gas pedal. His two front tires barely jumped before landing back on the marshy ground with a splash. Mission popping a wheelie for kicks had failed. The damn UFO had crashed in the worst possible spot, 3 miles from the ocean, knee-deep in the wetlands, after an East Coast deluge bordering on a tsunami. His pulse quickened. Sure as shit, a futuristic disc-shaped invader belonging on the other side of the universe could be taking a nap in his backyard. The urge to yell yeehaw nearly took over. He threw his shoulders back instead. No mountain man here. Strictly highbrow army all the way. although his deviant shadow self disagreed. Lou strategically maneuvered the military vehicle through the thick molasses of terrain at sloth speed. He was getting nowhere fast. Soggy soil devoured what was left of the tread on his oversized tires. He rose and sank along with the ATV as if he was driving over a wet sponge. The topography betrayed him big time. He punched the dash. Speed, force, anything was better than trudging through the sloshy territory. He hit the pedal to the floor, pushing the ATV to its breaking point. Instead of gaining ground, the driver's side tire hit a log buried below the quicksand-like dirt. For a split second, the vehicle skidded into a fishtail. The back tires swung out scarcely enough behind Lou to half dump him into the mess below. He hung onto the side of the truck like a monkey in a tree. Heaving his torso back up to the wheel, the massive bicep he had grown in the weight room came in handy. He struck the side of the road pig with his boot as clumps of earth propelled into the darkness. Back upright and focused, the nervous rush had him seeing stars. Lou blinked a few times until his vision cleared. A puffed out chest later, he regained control of the hunk of metal and rubber. Squelching over the landscape, he closed in on his bullseye inch by inch. When he had gone about 100 feet, he slowed to a stop. Gangs of crickets cried out in a cacophony of distant chirps. Squirrels scampered frantically through the trees. They weren't running away from the quad. Adrenaline rushed Lou's veins. Closer than he had ever been to a possible otherworldly object, he lifted the night vision binoculars to his eyes. The moonlight glinted off a spark of silver shrouded by oversized trunks and branches. Was it a plane or a spaceship? He couldn't tell. Only a sliver of the crash site was visible through the dense wood. No wings protruded. No tail lifted from the darkness. No lights, no sounds, no gases, flames, or screams. He caught a glimpse of the only observable section from his vantage point. A curve like a bubble, possibly a disc, was like nothing he had ever seen on a plane, be it private, commercial, military, or otherwise. Lou's mouth went dry. He swallowed to create natural saliva. His tongue was like a dehydrated prune. What was he thinking, refusing to partner on this mission? He had no idea what he was up against. Damn cocky ego refused company. He had wanted all the credit, Army suicide or not. If he were the smart armed forces leader he had been trained to be, he would have acquiesced. Maybe Dowd had the answer already, and Lou was simply his chump. He shrugged off his discontent, inhaled the moist air, and jerked the side-by-side around a group of trees. Turning left toward the moonbeam's only reflective target, for the first time in his life, he hoped he didn't see what he wanted to see most. As Lou got closer to confronting the object face to face, his stomach clenched. If someone or something were inside the craft and alive, he would really drop a load in his pants this time. Ego was his bitch. To suspect aliens exist was one thing. To find proof was another. To experience their existence would be life-changing. The radio beeped. Lou silenced it. The last thing he needed was an unexpected signal or an unannounced voice coming through the speaker to declare his arrival on the path of extraterrestrial danger. The faster he debunked the weather balloon, the better off he would be. His final trek to the mysterious object was a blur. When he arrived, he shut off the engine. Thick woods wrapped him in an eerie blanket of silent darkness. Soundlessness defied all logic. Fear of the unknown hung in the air like a curtain. Lou wouldn't speak. Whatever was out there might hear him. He fell back in his seat. No longer standing, he drew in a breath as if it were his last. It might be. Lou narrowed and widened his eyes in rapid succession. His vision alone couldn't be trusted. Awe and fear swirled inside his gut like marble rye. An honest-to-God illusion stared back at him. Mouth agape in wonder, he reached for his radio without breaking his stare on the thing that couldn't exist, but did.
I like it. Excellent. Excellent. And you did a great job with that reading.
So stressful to read because it's not my thing, but thank you.
I understand. Well, you had mentioned the audiobook, but and that's how I read this book, was listening to the audiobook, and it was fantastic. It really was. A producer did such a great job with it.
Yeah, he really did.
How did you end up with him?
So what happened was, Among Us actually was chosen for 2018 ACX University project. So ACX University is an education platform for authors that is run by Audible.
Oh,
And they chose me and Among Us to do an education webcast series. So my part was on the narration piece. So what happened was I actually went to Newark, to Audible in Newark, which was really cool. It was a very amazing experience. There are two buildings there. One was, for the Audible corporate, and then the other was like more of the studios and the Celebrity Center. And so I met with the marketing director of Audible Studios, as well as the people who actually run Audible. And we went in and filmed an education video on narrating your book. And they had somebody there that they chose, Chris Shula, who I've actually used for Winter Road's audiobook, which just came out. That's another book of mine. It's a holiday thriller, believe it or not. Perfect timing for this time of year. And so I got to hear him do a clip from my book, and we went through the process on what it was like to pick a narrator, what kind of narrator you would want to pick, and why. You would do that, and what things to look out for. They educated me basically on the process, and then they took me through the process. So after the video and the whole education piece for authors that we did from the 2018 series, they put a call out for narrators, and they narrowed it to help me narrow it down, and I think I ended up with a good amount that I had to go through, and then I narrowed it all the way down to two, and Lewis was one of them. And the way I picked him, it's funny because when you're listening to your book being read, the first person who reads it is like amazing, because it's like, oh
mhm.
my God, my book came to life. It really, having an audiobook is one of the most amazing experiences. And I swear, if I would love all of my books to be audiobook, because it's so awesome having your book come to life. But when the right person reads it, the person that was meant to read your story, and it's not about being a good narrator or not, it's about the person who can tap into what your story's about and be on the same page with it. And that's like more of an instinctual thing, I think, for an author than anything. Lou did it. Like, I heard Lou and I had chills. Like, I just knew it was him. And I trust my gut a lot. I'm a very intuitive person. And so I knew it was him, but I went back and I made sure I listened to everybody else, and listen, they all did a great job. But it was about just him getting everything. And by the way, he's a seasoned actor. He's an Emmy award-winning actor, writer, director, and he's amazing. I was very blessed and lucky to have him even audition and be able to do it. But yeah, it's something that it really brings your story to life. And I recommend, any authors listening, I would say, like, I know that it's a lot of work, and it could be, depending on how you publish, a financial consideration as well. But it is absolutely one of the best ways to get your story out into readers' hands or listeners' hands.
Yeah, it really is, and I agree with you. And I consume books almost all audio just
Me
because
too.
I work so much, but where I work, I can have my headphones in all the time. So,
Exactly.
yeah, so it really is great. But yeah, just a fantastic job. I was super impressed. So, and that makes a difference. Having the right producer, like you said, it can just bring your book to life. Yeah. Well,
It
in
makes
the reading that you gave us, we're talking about Lou, and this was before he was retired, but now he's a retired Army general, right?
Yeah.
And I really, really liked him as a character, and I know
Mhm.
he's more of a supporting character in this novel, but he was really cool. I mean, it was neat to see. It wasn't what I was expecting,
Mhm.
so I thought that
Yeah,
was good.
it's funny because my family, both on my husband's side and my side, we have people in the military, Army, also Marines, and but mostly Army. And we have family members that were, actually, my husband's grandfather was a three-star general in the Army.
Oh, wow.
Um, so he was bigwig and great guy, one of the best people you would ever meet in your life, a leader, a real true leader as a human being, and just a kind, wonderful man. But I think just having that history of and family in the military, and growing up with my dad, who was in the Army, he was a paratrooper, and he, just having that experience, it was like I really felt like this guy. I made him up, obviously. Like, he's not either my in-law, grandfather, or my dad, but there was something about it. Like, I understood kind of, I guess, the grit and the what it takes to be in the military, and the kind of person you become, and how awesome it was. Like there was nothing about everything about it that I've taken away in my life has been positive. It's taught me just just having a dad that was in the military who's a real easy, he's such an easygoing. I mean, I'm so lucky to still have my dad, easygoing, kind, loving guy, but he was all about just rules, and I grew up like that. I'm a rule follower, and I work really hard. I have great work ethic and all these things. So I tried to make him into a real person. And I don't know, for some reason, he came so naturally to me. And it was like, I would want him as my neighbor, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that, as professional writers, that we learn how to write most everything well. But I think that we write best at the things that we're most familiar with. Um, and it just, you can really see the passion in it, in the care you put into that. But tell me about Marcy, because I was really entertained by her character. And Marcy and Lou are neighbors, and that's kind of how we get intertangled here. But she's a blogger, she's a paranormal enthusiast, she's a teacher. And, tell me a little bit about the creation of Marcy.
Sure. So, like we talk about it on these shows all the time. Like, there's a little bit of us in every character, right? And there's no one character I would say that's me by any means, but I can identify with her on so many levels because there's so much. There's like always. Well, I'm a Gemini to begin with, so there's two of me always, right? But like in my day job, really, I'm very conservative. I've got a rule following job. I'm in corporate America. I'm a leader. I have teams under me. I do HR, I do communications, and I'm a very like that, right? I also have my coaching background. So that gives me a little bit of that kind of gray area flexibility and the ability to want to go into areas, like go into the unknown a little bit and explore so I can learn and grow. So that helped a lot with her. And also what I write thrillers, I write paranormal stuff and science fiction. So it's not really, it doesn't really tie in with what I do during the day. So I took that experience, like you said, we write a little bit of what we know. And I think what we know is life experience, emotions, and just, being a human, right? That's part of what this writing is all about. So she came to me from somebody who I kind of took her back to. They always say, like, take your character back to the beginning, like as far back as you can take them, and then you want to change them along the way, and so they become something different at the end of the story. That's the kind of the caterpillar to butterfly transformation that every story is. So I took her back to a very conservative English professor. And if you can imagine, at a university that is a private school, which I went to a private university for my graduate degree in psychology. So I had a little bit of that experience come in, right? I took her back to this person who had to be a certain way at work. And that's their image was everything. Image in and out of the office and work is everything. And then she comes home and she's like this whiskey drinking, horror book reading, paranormal girl who is really interested in what's out there in the universe and believes all of this crazy stuff that she barely admit to her mom, who's like a churchgoer and like wants her to go to church and just pray about everything. And she's kind of like, well, no, like I am a thinker and this is what I do in academia. I think, and you're asking me, you want me to shape the minds of people. Well, I want to open minds up. Like she really didn't see that. I think the thing that was crazy about it, and when I look back, as much as she knew she wasn't the same person during the day as she was at night, she was the same person inside. She was just expressing herself in a different way. So like all that open-mindedness came out for her at work in a different way. So I really wanted her to be kind of have this battle going on inside of her. And then I wanted her to have an opportunity to make a decision about where she was going to go. And she had to do that, obviously, in the story. And it takes her on an adventure that really is exciting.
Well, yeah,
Was
and she was so well developed. Her backstory and her interactions with everyone, that I could really see her. And while I was listening to it, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if this is Christina, because this is pretty realistic here. I wonder if
right.
that's her. Um, and
Pretty close. Not too far off. I don't drink whiskey, but I like wine. Not as much as she likes her whiskey, but
well, on paper, I know it's kind of funny to say that when we're talking about a book, but it seems like her and her neighbor Lou wouldn't really be a good match for a friendship, but they develop this great friendship as neighbors. Tell me a little bit about their relationship and how their relationship really leads to the main story behind Among Us.
So she's kind of a loner and he's kind of a loner, and they happen to live, neighbors, live across the street from each other. And she has no family nearby. He has no family nearby. And so because of their connection and he obviously has information, right? This is where this all goes. So he believes, and you can tell by the first chapter, she believes something's out there. She has a blog called Among Us, and she writes about all of these different things that could be going on out in the universe and what the government's hiding, and if they are and they're not. So they connect on that level. They connect on a level that is about their beliefs in what could be possible, and that he takes her seriously, like a lot of people wouldn't if you said, I believe in, aliens in the universe. Some people might look at you like you're crazy, but he believes, and he believes because he also feels like he has information that can go down that road, which is where the story goes. And it's also like a fatherly, grandfatherly kind of situation where she becomes almost like a granddaughter to him, and he becomes almost like a grandfather to her. And so they have a friendship built on like almost like a familiarity, familiarity, if that's a tongue twister. I'm like, did I even say that right?
Flamingolarity?
Right,
Is that?
exactly. I'm
I'm
like
not
a
sure.
flamingo familial. No, I don't know. But there's this connection there. And so he gets to know her and trusts her and knows she's a good girl. He knows she's a good girl. She's going to do the right thing in life. And he knows that she's a rule follower, but that there's a part of her that wants to break the rules. And that's kind of where I feel like it's not just about me. I think like all of us have multiple sides of who we are, and the person who shows up at work might not be the person who shows up at home, who shows up with a friend or with family. So there's pieces of us that come out in different ways. And so she lets a very vulnerable piece of her come out with him. And I think because she does that, he trusts her, and he knows that he can trust her with information that is, very, it's deadly information. It's information that could get her killed.
And you say that she's a rule follower, and I never really got rule follower from her. I got the impression that she was playing her role as a
Sure.
professor
Yeah.
and behaving how she was supposed to, but it almost seems to me like she was just waiting
Yes.
waiting for something that she was like, yeah, I'm running with it.
Yes. Yeah. She needed an excuse to break all the rules she had been following, where she's showing up and being this prim and proper, and everything she wears and the way even her bag, everything's organized, and all of these things are like perfect. And it's like she looks like this picture perfect English professor. And then when she gets out of there, it's like she hits her gas pedal and she's going home for her glass of whiskey and horror
Well,
book.
she was being stifled. She had to break
Yeah,
free.
sure. That is so true. She did. Yeah, you're
So,
absolutely right.
well, in her journey, she goes from college professor to fugitive
Right.
pretty darn fast in
Right.
this book. Things escalate like crazy. The pace is just explosive. It's wonderful. Um, you know, Tell me how you came up with life for a civilian on the run from a government agency. Where did you pull that from?
It's so funny because I don't have that experience that I know of. Although I was Googling some things and my doorbell rang and there was no one there. So I'm thinking, what are they like really tapping into my computer? I watch a lot of TV. I did anyway before the baby. I'm a new mom, so this is like sleep is what I look forward to. But yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of different shows about like unsealed alien files and government conspiracy shows, and just you
Yes.
get ideas that way. And a lot of things that I watched and also then ended up researching. Um, were scary, obviously terrifying. I mean, I'm making it into fiction, but I just thought like, what would happen if I tried to put myself in a situation or put her in a situation, and you have to put yourself in to be her, where you were really tapping into information that didn't belong to you, and and you were really messing with some people that had power. What would happen? Like, what could happen? And just the things that I've seen that people suggest have happened led me to believe that it would be noted right away. Someone would know you're messing with the wrong we're online. There's like Big Brother, and Big Brother's
Mhm.
like, oh, this girl is doing this and this is what's going on, that we're being watched. Like, this is what's going on in my mind in the book. We're being watched. Someone knows what she's into, and they don't want her to talk. They don't. This is not a good thing for them. And be it right or wrong why they're withholding the information, and that was something I struggled with. Like, I didn't have an opinion. I was just exploring, like, if the truth was worth revealing, because I don't know that. Um, the agency really believed that it wasn't, and she really believed that it was. And I can imagine how would what would you feel like, and what would it look like if there was somebody with a lot more power than you, many people with a lot more power than you after you? Like, that's terrifying, and there's no escape. I mean, there's nowhere to go. This is, this is the government. Like,
Yeah.
in this book, this is beyond the government. This is a special agency that has access to everything, and you're nobody. You're just like this little, the civilian who, like you said, is on the run. So I just tried to get into her mind and make it as scary for her as I could, but also give her enough motivation to keep going. Like, not make it so horrible that she's going to give up. I wanted her to have, like, little bits along the way of hope, so she was willing to fight this unfightable agency. Like, she's a lot braver than I am. Let's just put it that way. Maybe she's as brave as I want to be, but she was really brave.
Well, and
I probably would have said, okay, at the first time I got a knock on the door. Sure, I don't know what document.
yeah.
I see what you're talking about.
They're like, no, I'm
That's
done
right.
with this. I'm
Yeah.
out. Yeah. No, and I thought that because we all do that thing where if we're reading a book or watching a show and a character is behaving in a manner that we don't think they should, we're like, oh no, don't do that, or what? Don't do this, don't do that. It's
Right.
foolish. And so there were times in this book where I was screaming at her in my head, but
Yeah.
I thought the way that she was reacting to things seemed really realistic to me. You know how she knows about this agency. She's been warned. Lou has told her. She's been told by Pierce, who we'll talk about in a minute. And yet still, when their power really manifests, she's still shocked, as I think any of us would
Mhm.
be, because it's one thing to hear something, and another thing to be like, oh my God, they were serious about that. That was really gonna
Right.
happen.
Right. Like, and she didn't want to believe it. She's
Yeah.
just like, you're crazy. As crazy as someone would say she was. She was saying that they were crazy. Right.
Oh yeah. Well,
And she
and
wanted to go on the adventure. I think that was the thing, is she wanted so badly. When you want so badly, and I just try to think of this is the only way I can picture it. When you want something so badly and it seems so crazy, like what we do for a living, writers, and the things that we want to happen in our life, like the things that are happening to people we know, right? The
Mhm.
movies, the shows. You have to dream so big, it's not even
Yeah.
normal. It's not
Yeah.
normal. And you're like, me with a book turned into a movie? No way. But you have to dream that big for even to be a possibility. So I tried to think, like, this girl wants something so badly. She wants this adventure so badly that anything that comes in her way, she's just going to barrel over it, because this is the adventure she's wanted all her life.
Well, and I totally agree. And I'll tell you what, if my wife were in her situation, because my wife is an adventure seeker, she would totally do the same thing. She'd be like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm going on this adventure. Danger. I don't care.
Yes.
Damn it all." And
Yeah.
I think that's amazing and courageous. I mean, it can be foolish and courageous at the same time, and I
True.
think that's a Gryffindor kind of thing. But um,
It's it's true. And in life, it's different. In life, we don't do what the characters do. Like, in life, we go on an adventure with clauses. Like,
yeah.
if this happens, then that. And we don't realize it, but we hold ourselves back a lot more than we think we do. And in books, you don't have to do that. We can
Yeah.
just go.
Well, and that's one of the beautiful things about fiction too, is that we can provide readers with a little bit more fantastic world, even if it's the real world, even if
Sure.
it's set in modern day America, it can still be a little bit more fantastic, which is amazing. So the ESA, it felt a little bit like Men in Black to me, except for not funny at all. In fact,
Right.
it was terrifying. And I'm not going to go into any details because, I don't want to give anything about the story away, but this was a huge machine of an organization that you built with a lot of cogs that were spinning. Um, was that just off the top of your head kind of stuff, or did you have to do a lot of research into government agencies to try to build this? How did you put this together? Because it seems like a huge feat to me.
So The research I did was primarily on the Freedom of Information Act and the documents that were released as a result of that, and in conjunction with um, just the whole extraterrestrial concept. Like, is there life? Have we been visited and all this stuff? And what I was finding was that anything that ever got out, and this is just like in, with historically, was repressed, was held back, and there were people in charge of that. And a lot of the documents that have been released were for, exactly how I had it in the book. For you know there were just classified eyes only. There were certain language that they used, that I tried to pull from. The language that I used in my document and then the things in the book, I pulled from language that I found in documents that had been released post Freedom of Information Act. So my point being is I tried to take what I thought might be like reality and twist it, and make it what if it wasn't just the regular government? What if it wasn't just our security, our global security, whether it's the NSA or some other organization that really are trying to protect us in the way that they feel? Because I do believe, and this is another piece of it, I went into this not trying to put down anybody, but I went into thinking, what if really this government agency that is so terrifying had what they thought were good intentions? I mean, most villains think that they're doing the right thing by some way, shape, or form. It might not be
Yeah.
right to us, but they think they're doing the right thing. They really believed, even though they went to a sick level to do it, they really believed they were doing the right thing. They were protecting global security in everything they were doing. So I tried to think, like, what if I worked for somebody who made me protect information because I believed it was for the greater good, until I started unraveling the onion. So I looked at, like, okay, there's government agencies that do this or that and protect information. It's classified. They take information back that they've let out because, okay, they don't want the public to know. And then I try to take it to a level of like fiction where it's extraterrestrial. It's an agency that deals with that. And it really is not the Men in Black funny, whatever, but the real, like, this is real. And we're terrified that people are going to find out the truth, because then it's going to be mayhem on earth. And so we as an agency, to whatever lengths we need to go to keep this secret. And it's for good reason in their mind. And in her mind, it's not. Like, you need to tell everybody. People need to know what we're dealing with. So I tried to look at it as not necessarily that they were, and by the way, they are in my mind bad in the book, right? But they're the villain. I think the ESA is really the villain. But I tried to think, like, what if that was true? And by the way, I pulled, from like a corporate America type standpoint, like, if I had information that was good, right, that I thought was good, but it turned out not to be, and I didn't want anyone to, like, how would I, like, I'm just trying to think, like, in life, whether you're at like your day job or whatever, you believe in something, and so you're careful with that information. And you're afraid that if people know, and then on the flip side, well, I want to know as an employee everything. So I tried to think of it more like on that level. So the development was really from whatever information is out there about what we have access to in terms of information about how a government might run, or an agency might run, or like a CIA or an NSA, which I have no idea about, or FBI, like how they run. Any information that's available to us, because we don't know that that's all the information, right? We don't
Yeah.
always have all the information. And I do know that we don't always have all the information. We have very little. I think we probably have 10% of the information that really is out there. And take that to the next level. And
Yeah.
how would I be, so I could get into the bad characters.
Well, and not only do we not have all the information, but we don't have all the perspectives. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of this novel as
Sure.
well, is whose perspective are you looking at this problem from? Because we do get to see things through the bad guy's point of view, so to speak. And thing is, I was terrified of the ESA, the bad agency, but I didn't hate Pierce, who was working for them, because he was just a normal human, a normal human that happened to do this job, and he had his own backstory and his own internal conflicts, and um, so I think that really made it hit home for me as I'm getting to that midpoint to 2/3 of the way through this book, that things aren't exactly how I was perceiving them. in the beginning. This isn't just a good versus bad type of situation. There's something deeper going on here. Well, and I wanted to bring this up because before I forget too, have you ever seen the movie Avatar?
Oh yeah.
Okay, with the blue people.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So
hmm
there's an army guy in there, and
hmm
he's I don't know, major, commander, whatever. I can totally picture him. I think his name is Stephen Lang. I could totally picture him as Lou Rawlings, or next door there. I thought that he'd be
Yeah,
he'd be really good. I mean, he's kind of a,
that's true. Yes, you're right. Okay.
you know,
Now that
he's just got that, he's an
yes,
old guy, but he's got that hard look, like he's just
yes,
lived a tough life.
yes.
But all right, sorry,
Yeah, no, that's true.
that was a
And
little bit of an
carrying a
aside there.
secret. No, but it's true. But carrying a secret, I think that was what I try to get through in him. It's like carrying a secret for 50 years will
Yeah.
eat you alive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Carrying a secret like that, and people, and I believe, and I don't know what it is, but I know there are people who have information that they, whether it's from a government standpoint or a life standpoint, people walk around with information that they hold, secrets that they hold, that eat them alive. That's what secrets do. They'll eat you alive. I think the other part of it, when you talked about the agency, was interesting because, like you said, Pierce is just a normal guy doing a job, like, a lot of people. But then there's Miles, who
Miles
isn't a
is
normal
not a
guy.
good guy.
And by the way, they're out there too. There are the crazy,
Yeah.
the people who have that deviant side that look for jobs of power.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got that going on, because that's for real. You have the good guys and you have the bad guys. And unfortunately, the bad guys make a name for all of them. But I think you have all of that out there. You have people really trying to do good, or believing they're doing good, and maybe finding out they aren't later and being shocked about that. Or the people who know they're not and don't care. And, maybe he had, and he does have his own belief system. And Miles believes he's doing the right thing, but he takes it to the degree of,
Oh yeah.
he's using it to be a psychopath. Like, that's
Yeah.
what he is.
Oh yeah,
And
that totally his intention. And I think it was
sure.
an Elite Child book, a Jack Reacher book, where he's talking about the different types of people who want to be a sniper, and how some feel like it's
Yes.
a duty, some feel like it's a family
Yes.
obligation, and some just want to kill
Absolutely.
people. I mean,
Definitely.
there are bad people out there.
Definitely.
Um,
And they find jobs where and some of them find jobs where they can use that to their advantage.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
can do that. So, but yeah, that's where I tried to pull him from, was just somebody who, he got into this for the wrong reasons, and he's taking every advantage he can of it.
Okay. Well, no, I love it. It's my favorite. I actually pick out books based on this, but I love strong female protagonists in books.
Mhm.
It's my thing. I love reading them. The characters are so dynamic and wonderful. So I always enjoy picking up a book and getting a good strong female character. What can you tell me about building Marcy into the kind of character you wanted her to be, though? Because she, as you said, she started out as one character and ended as somebody completely different, or not
Mhm.
completely, but she grew in that time period. How did you give her that growth?
It's very funny because she was hard to write, believe it or not. As much as I could identify with her, for whatever reason, I am very comfortable writing male characters. Like, I don't know if it's like what it is. I have no idea.
And I
But
and I,
I
I write all female characters.
It's just funny.
That's
I'm
funny.
the masculine side of a character. The darker, if I make them darker, I will say not all male. Let me be very specific. So if I write a masculinity is probably the word I want to be using, because that's what I think of it as. But not only that, it's a dark, and I tend to make the men bad, and I'm sorry, like, there's nothing against that, but I tend to make them the bad ones, or the ones that
Men
have that
suck.
ability.
Men suck.
Yeah, but they don't. They're great. I mean, I have them in my life. A wonderful dad, wonderful husband. But I think it's a comfort level of mine. And it really is not right. I don't believe there's any right or wrong in fiction. I think you've got to do what you're comfortable doing and what you feel like you can do justice to the best. And I'm not that great. To me, I work harder to write the women, even though I'm a woman. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's because I don't want to put too much of myself in there, and I'm trying to separate it out. But on this book specifically, I did do something different that I've never done before. I didn't just work with editors and stuff like that. I worked with a writing coach on it. And the reason I did was because I was really trying. I knew that, like, when I first wrote Marcy, she was kind of, I don't know, to me, she felt flat. And I was like, I don't, and I almost cut her. I almost cut her and I almost made Pierce the main character. I really like, I was so struggling with that, but I worked on her a lot because I really thought it was important to make her that real, having the two sides and having the two sides be so different, but connected in who she was. So yeah, she wasn't easy for me because I think there was a lot of me in her and I didn't want it to be me. I wanted it to be Marcy. And so I struggle with that, honestly. I really like writing, like in my thriller Winter Road. It's a holiday thriller, and Jake is the bad guy, and I really enjoyed writing him. I really loved writing him. I loved, and it was easy for me. And part of it, I think, though, to go back to like from an education standpoint, I have my master's in psychology, and I did focus a lot on abnormal psychology, and I think there's that like thing where I always wonder, like, what makes somebody evil? Why would somebody do something bad? Because I generally feel like the world and people are good. And so what makes someone bad? And so I dive into that. I think it's my own desire to understand the human mind and what makes someone evil per se, just where that evil comes from. And I dive into that and I'm comfortable doing that. But I do masculine traits I'm very comfortable with. I enjoy writing that. So she
Interesting.
was
Okay.
hard and I needed help with her. And I'm being honest. And I put it all out there as an author. It's not easy writing books. It
No.
isn't easy. And they're never, ever as good as you want them to be. And I cringe sometimes reading back my work and especially older work. It's like, I know I'm not where I want to be. I know I'll be a different author in 5 years and I'm looking forward to her. And
Yeah.
I'm working on myself every day and writing. So it's hard. And it was a lot of work.
And that's difficult for all of us to accept that
Yeah.
5 years down the road, we are going to look back and say, "Oh, I better do something about this. It's not up to standards." But we're all learning. Every
We're
person
learning.
in this world is learning as we go. Um,
If you're not learning, you're not growing. And if you don't think you have to be better, you're never going to get better. And I
yeah,
think it's not about putting yourself down and saying, like, I'm a terrible, author. I'm not, Stephen King or Jonathan Mayberry. Like, no, they are who they are. We are who we are. And
yep,
I really tried to forgive myself. And when I look back at my first book, which, I still enjoy and I still like, it's not as, in my opinion, it's not the same way I write now. And I like the way I
mhm.
write now better personally. I've evolved, of course, but I look back and I'm like, that's the best book I could write at that time. And I'm proud of that. And I'm leaving it alone. And if it's terrible, then it's terrible. But it's the best I could write at that point. And here is where I am today. And I'm not going to pretend I was something better than I was back then. That's who I was. I worked really hard, but that's what I had to offer. And it's like we are human beings and we have to accept each other for our flaws, like we do our characters.
I love that.
You
That's
know,
that's perfect. Very well said. Now, this particular book, because I do you write any nonfiction as well, or are you all fiction?
I do, well, it's funny. I don't, but I do. I have some in the works. Like it's just, I
Okay.
have some nonfiction in the works. Yeah, but I haven't yet written anything, published anything. I should say nonfiction.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah,
But even though this one is fiction, in my head at least, it wouldn't take that much of a push to make this reality.
right.
It would just be believing just a little bit, and this could actually be a real thing. So
Yeah.
so the question for you is, which you've got to see coming, is what what do you believe? Do you believe that there's something else out there?
So yeah, you know what? I do believe that we are not the only intelligent beings in the universe. I think,
They're
and
watching you right now.
I really do. They probably are. And so, hello, hi, how are you guys? No, I believe that. Okay, here's the best way I can say it. So I'm being truthful and not just believing in a fantasy. Okay, what I truly believe is we don't know everything.
Mm,
And to think that we do is foolish. And I'm just going to say that. Okay. I think we don't know everything about life. We don't know everything about death. We don't know everything about the universe. We just don't. And our mind, and I don't know where I heard this, but it was on a show. It was probably about the universe or the mind, as I watch a lot of both of those, where our ability to understand something is only as advanced as our brain, right? Like we can't be any better than human. So
no, we
that's
we can't. That's
we
exactly
cannot.
right.
And even our artificial intelligence is made by humans. So
Yep.
so I feel like we have to understand that we're limited in our understanding of the world, of existentialism, of who we are, of why we're here, of what's out there. So if we are open to saying, you know what, I don't know everything, anything is possible. And I would say I believe anything is possible. I believe they could be here, they could be already here, they could be, doing exactly what my book says they're doing. Or maybe that's not the case, I don't know, but I believe that anything is possible.
I was
Right, it's
ripping off my
true.
face mask.
Yeah, exactly. I knew exactly what that was because I've written a story like that. I'm not telling you which one.
No.
It's a surprise. But I believe that anything is possible and that we don't have all the information. Even what we think we know, we don't know. And I think it's okay. And if we as humans would just accept that we don't know everything, we would stop fighting with each other, and we would stop berating each other and putting each other down
Yeah.
and making each other feel like we're crazy, because nobody knows everything.
Well,
And that's okay. That's the beauty of life and the
Yeah.
excitement of life, of what could be. If we stop dreaming, why are we here? Then life is boring, right? If we know everything, you hand me a manual, you tell me everything that there is to know. This is like boring life now. Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's exciting to think of, oh, is that true? And maybe, and by the way, it's scary, but it's also exciting because it means anything is possible. Why would anybody ever have a goal, a dream, if you didn't believe in the impossible?
Yeah.
Right? So we just have to stop thinking we know everything. We don't, and it's okay.
It
That's what
is.
makes life
Well,
cool.
can you
You know,
imagine how boring life would be if we understood every little thing about every little thing out
everything,
there?
everything.
There would be no adventure left. There
No.
really wouldn't. So
And I also think it would be boring if we were all the same. And I think what's so cool about human beings is, I don't, whatever you want to, you can put yourself in whatever group you want, but at the end of the day, each one of us is perfectly unique. And we're exactly who we're supposed to be. And that's what makes it so cool, that we're all so different. If we're all the same, and by the way, I do love to be with people who are like me, and I love to be with people who are not like me. It's just so cool to be able to be different and have different viewpoints, as long as we're kind about it. The arguing and stuff like that, I don't really like. I like to just go, well, what do you think? Wow, that's interesting. Maybe I don't agree, but who cares? Neither one of us is right, neither one of us is wrong. It's just, that's what makes life interesting to me, is the believing in the unknown. And that's what I always say, embrace the unknown. That's like my thing, that I like, my little like tagline, if there is such a thing anymore, because I feel like that's my challenge. I write about things that scare me. I write about things that I wonder about. And I want to learn to embrace the unknown and not be afraid of what might be. So I do that through my writing. I explore things, and, then I go, oh, I'm so glad this is fiction, but is it? We don't know. And that's okay too. I don't really ever want, I mean, truthfully, I would rather not know, me personally, because I would probably scare the heck out of me. But I love imagining. Like we all did as kids. Remember, we'd lay in our bed at night and think about things. And we don't imagine as adults. We want facts. We want proof. We want everything to be proven to us that this is the way it is. It's not fun anymore. Why can't we imagine and be creative in our minds? And that's amazingly what we get to do as authors. We get to go there.
Yep. And that's one of the many perks of this job.
Isn't it? It's so great that we get to go there and go, well, what if this? And, who cares? Like, let's just see what's going to happen if that were to be. And I think more people should be creative in the way that they, live their life, whether it's writing a book or art or whatever, because that part of us that we suppress in like everyday life, when we have to be certain people in a certain way, that's what makes us unique, and what makes us human, and what makes us, really loving life and appreciating life, is to explore things like that, and I think everybody should find that creative side, find a hobby. It's something you love to do, and explore it, because it's what makes life fun.
You are so inspirational. I
Oh my
just
God.
want to go out and do stuff now. I'm like,
Oh,
yes,
you're so funny.
I love it.
You need a motivational talk, Jason, call me. You got it. Hey, that's me, but that's the coaching just helped me so much. Help me get through just dark. Listen, we've all had dark times. You're not going to talk about them here, but the darkness helps me, right? But it's like, you got to remember that we're here to, experience things. So we got to make it fun.
You're absolutely right. Well, tell us where we can find all your books, if you would, please.
Sure. So KristinaRienzi.com is my home on the web. I'm linked to everyone. My books are all over. They're not exclusively, when they first come out, they do go exclusively to Amazon for 90 days. I do that in the beginning. It's just a practice I've done. But then once they're out for 90 days, they're all over. And actually Audible, I now have 2 books on Audible, Among Us, which I talked to you about a little bit, being produced by Audible directly. And then I also produced Winter Road with Chris Strula, who is a narrator that worked on the education series with me. But I'm getting into Audible a little bit more because I do love the audio. So
Awesome.
while I'm all over in and print and all that stuff, Audible's kind of where I'm trying to get all my books up on. So, but
Okay.
KristinaRienzi.com. And I'm on Facebook. I hang out on Facebook, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. I don't know.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
like Instagram the most.
Well, and I'm going to check out, it's Winter Road, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Winter Road, a holiday thriller. You know, I was laughing talking to one of my other thriller writing friends about, you know, how we wish that like the meaning of Christmas, you know, that the protagonist finds the meaning of Christmas by, you know, hunting down a serial killer. It's like one of those. It's like,
I
you know,
like
it's
that.
the meaning of Christmas, but you find it through a thriller. Like
I love it. No, that sounds beautiful.
a lot of fun.
It's way better than the Hallmark movies.
Right. I know. And I love those. And we were laughing because I watched them like crazy. But I said, I'm like, wouldn't it be great if there was a Hallmark movie about, like, we just laugh about it because as much as I love that, I love this too. And you got to find a way to blend it. So was my holiday thriller. It was like Christmas lights and gift giving and a psychopath. I mean, it just, let's hope these things never happen. This is what I write about, my fears, you know?
That's awesome. Oh yeah, that's going to be the next on my audiobook list. So.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you so much, Kristina. You've been wonderful.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. It was great to be here. I had so much fun. I love talking with you. You're awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
have a good night, everybody.